Hey, friends, welcome back. In this week's episode, I want to talk about surrendering as a woman of color. And I think that we don't talk enough about this in context. I think that there is a lot of talk about, manifesting or surrendering or co creating with the divine when it comes to having the life that you want, the love that you want, the abundance, the wealth, etc., that you want. But I think that we don't talk enough about the context of it all. I think a lot of women of color and just generally people of the global majority really struggle with this and they're not talking about it. I think that they, in a lot of ways, are struggling in silence. There is a lot of rhetoric online, and oh my gosh, there's like so many books written on manifesting and surrendering and letting go and blah, blah, blah. But I think that a lot of this rhetoric is oversimplified and it lacks nuance. And, if you're reading about rather surrendering or manifesting, you can feel a little bit silly or like something is wrong with you because it is presented as this really simple thing. And, it's not that it's not simple, it's that like with anything, context matters, right? And so before I get into that, I just want to be very clear about, from my point of view, what surrendering is and what it isn't. Surrendering is not about being disempowered. It is not about, throwing your hands up in the air and I'm just going to like pray and, wait, with like bracing myself for whatever happens, fearful that whatever it is that I want isn't going to happen, right? It's kind of like this idea of like, I'm just going to see what happens. That surrendering is not that. It is not a passive process. It is also not a process with a lot of ego. It's not about control and judgment or focusing on the outcomes. Surrendering is a really active process. You have to be an active participant in that process. That does not mean that you wear all of the hats. Being an active participant means that you know what your role is and you actively participate in your role. It means that you are awake and aware. It means that you are observing and moving in alignment with your inner knowing, or, if you do have a relationship with God, your ancestors, guides, spirit, whatever the case is, right? That you are co-creating with them, right? And your inner knowing. We all have an inner knowing if we just kind of like pause and listen. It is knowing and trusting that there is something bigger at play and co-creating with that. And so the truth is that surrendering and manifesting, for example, can feel harder for Black and brown folks than it does for white people. And I'm not just talking about like Karen and them, right? I'm talking about folks who are racially white, or what is commonly referred to as like white passing. And, I don't like or use that term because I think it's inaccurate. I think it's dishonest. But, I'm mentioning it here in case it kind of helps you understand what it is that I'm trying to get at. So this includes white Latinx folks. It can feel harder for a Black Latinx person to surrender than it does for a white Latinx person. Why? Because unfortunately, your skin color has a lot to do with your lived experiences. Race, right, even though it's technically not real, is an organizing principle in our society. The closer you are to whiteness or perceived whiteness, the better you are treated and the more perceived value you have, right? That is just the world that we live in. I'm not talking about, the city or state that you live in. Like, this is globally. You go anywhere in the world and you're going to see the same exact thing. And so this experience impacts how you move in the world and it impacts your nervous system. Living in a Black or brown body, right? Like a body that is clearly not white. And I kind of have to just pause here for a second and make this point. Even if you are ethnically ambiguous, right, which can sometimes be a privilege, it is not the same as moving in a body that is clearly Black or brown. Sometimes the ambiguity or folks not really being able to place you can be a privilege, right? And so living in a Black or brown body means having a hyper-vigilant nervous system. Why? Because you live in a world that thinks that just because of the color of your skin, you're inferior, that there's a problem with you. And if you're tuning in and you're like, girl, you are bugging. I am not hyper vigilant. I feel calm. I am totally fine. My heart is not beating fast. That is not the only way that a hyper vigilant nervous system presents. I want to give you just like a few examples of how your hyper vigilant nervous system can manifest that you may not even be aware of, right? One, if you're a parent and you teach your Black and brown kids how to quote unquote behave, and I know that you know what that means in public, that might point to a hypervigilant nervous system. If you notice, right, that you're one of the, if not the only, a Black person in a room, in a store, at work, that might point to a hypervigilant nervous system. If you code switch, right? If you attempt to manifest or, do, let's say, I don't know, like a new moon ritual, but you have a plan B, C, and D, right? While you're also doing that ritual, that might also point to a hypervigilant nervous system. It means that your nervous system, your body is looking out for danger. It is not settled and is doing these things to survive and feel safe. When your nervous system is constantly looking for danger, it is difficult, if not impossible, to surrender because it feels threatening, right? And in episode 23, I spoke to y'all about how your nervous system is smart. It is going to, brilliant actually. It is designed, it will prioritize your safety and do whatever it needs to do to keep you safe, i.e., code switching or walking into a store and seeing how many people of color, Black people, there are in the store, right? These are things that we do automatically. And again, it's not something that is a lot of times conscious, right? But it's because our bodies are scanning for danger. When your existence, such as that of Black and brown folks, is one that requires you to constantly prove every part of yourself, how can you possibly feel safe to surrender and let go? It's freaking hard. And if you're listening in, if you're tuning in and this is resonating with you, I hope that it validates why maybe it's been so hard for you to do something that people make out to be so simple. It's just something that you like, you open up a journal and you just like do this and, just let it go. Just like give it to God. Okay. What do you mean? I know that that definitely was the case for me for a long while. Like it just was not clicking for me. And so most of us don't realize that we've had an unsoothed, unsettled, I really don't like the word dysregulated, but you know what I mean. A lot of us have had an unsoothed and unsettled nervous system our entire lives. Like we just like pause for a second and just like conceptualize what that means. Our entire lives. Many of us were birthed from a mother with an unsettled nervous system. And remember, we borrow our mother's system, right? And when we're kids, it's also called co-regulation, right? And again, like you didn't wake up one day and say, oh, today I'm just like gonna have an unsettled nervous system. Like, of course not. You're like, that's not how this works. And I say that because I think that we can be really hard on ourselves. Like, why am I not getting this right? Everyone is talking about it, or I want to be able to let go, or I want to be able to not have a white knuckle grip on everything. I really want to be able to trust myself. I want to be able to. I want you to know that it's not that you're not doing enough or that there's something wrong with you. It's that you probably have not been using the right tools. You probably just didn't know this. Okay. If you don't feel safe and grounded in your body, there's just no way, it is impossible for you to align with the vibration of abundance, of money, of love, of like whatever it is that you want to call into your life. And if we take this a step further, right, and we think about this in a spiritual sense, we must know that spirituality, whatever that is for you, must exist in context because we're still human beings. Right? When talking about surrendering to the universe, to God, to spirit, like what have you, we cannot bypass our meat suit. Like I know that a lot of us, like try to do it, but like we can. And you know what, to be fair, you can temporarily, but again, it's temporary. And the other part that I also don't think a lot of folks talk about is that when you bypass your body, when you bypass your nervous system, you may also open up yourself to some other not awesome things, right? Talking about entities and all of that. And so, without the work to come back into your body, right, all the well intentioned guidance that you might receive or that you might read or that you might take in, it just doesn't have a place to land. You can't manifest, you can't surrender, you can't call in if you don't feel safe in your body. If your body's your home and you don't feel safe in your home, how can you possibly call in those things and do so easily? You might feel like you're running around in circles because you're not taking your body into account. There's nothing within you inherently that is wrong. It's just that you may not be taking into account the right tools. And so, how do we take care of ourselves? How do we take care of our bodies so that we can surrender and co-create and really call in the things that we want? One, body awareness. I cannot underscore how important this is because a lot of us are disconnected from our bodies, right? We are dissociated in some ways. And I'm talking about things like, do you even notice when you're hungry? Do you notice when you're thirsty? Do you notice when you're in pain? Do you notice the sensations in your body? Literally, when you wake up every single morning, just close your eyes. You can put your hand on your heart or on your belly, just like connecting with your body and just pause and check in. Like, what do you have to tell me today? How do I feel? Do a body scan, right? You can even do a guided body scan. You can find those on YouTube, right? Or like very easily online. Just scan your body, right? I don't know about y'all, but sometimes I be having dreams where, I wake up and I'm tense as fuck. I'm just like, what just happened? It just felt like I was like running or something in a dream. And I wake up and I'm like holding on to that. Without that awareness, I could just start my day in this like really tense state that isn't helpful to anybody. Just deepen your body awareness, connect with your body again, right? So that's one way. Another way is just increasing your mindfulness. What's your mind telling you versus what's your body telling you? Remember, you can't believe everything you think. Another thing that you can do to really resource yourself is incorporate tools like breath work or movement, right? That could be yoga, that could be Tai Chi, right? Like that could be anything. It connects you mind, body, spirit, right? Like it connects body with like your breath, right? It's not just you kind of going through the motions. Like that's not the type of like mindful movement that I'm talking about. I'm talking about the thing that like there is a connection to your breath, right? Like you're doing multiple things at the same time. And then, the other thing that, you can do to really resource yourself is work with a therapist or a coach. If you have experienced trauma of any kind, but especially, if it is, complex trauma or anything that, you're aware of has disconnected you from your body, I highly, 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 highly suggest you work with someone in addition to doing like your own thing at home. And the reason for this is because releasing stored trauma in the body can be very jarring. It can be a very destabilizing, actually, experience depending on what happened to you, depending on how it comes up, depending on where it's stored in your body. And you really just want to resource yourself through that. As we kind of wrap up here, I want to leave you with this. One of the first things that was stolen from us as people of the global majority of people who are descendants of enslaved folks was our imagination and thus our creativity. Do you understand just like how important that is to be able to imagine, to be able to create? You understand how important that is for our personal and collective liberation? A lot of people can't imagine beyond their reality. And if you do not feel safe and grounded in your body, there is just no way, you literally have no capacity to be able to imagine a different reality for yourself. And if you can't imagine a different reality for yourself, it's going to be really difficult for you to go towards that. I hope that's been very, very helpful, my friends. Take good care of yourselves, and I will see you next